Hi, this is Brandon with Precision Defensive Solutions, and today we're going to talk about a self-defense incident that happened on an RTA bus in Cleveland. So this incident happened back in March of this year, of 2022, and the bus was the RTA Healthline bus, and it was on Euclid Avenue at East 30th. The situation is kind of interesting because the guy, the attacker, he gets on the bus, and I have no idea if these two guys had an encounter prior to this, or they knew each other, or if this was completely random. But this guy gets on the bus, and he goes after this guy in the orange. And he's wanting the guy to get off the bus and fight for whatever reason. Well, the guy in the orange declined and was kind of, very adamant about no, he wasn't going to get into a fight with the guy. So what happened was the initial aggressor basically got on top of him, started pounding on him, got him trapped between the seat and the wall of the bus, which didn't leave him any place to go but to fight. He fought the guy off. They gained some distance, and the initial attacker started separating himself. Well, the guy in the orange, he gets up and he's got a gun on him. I guess they determined that he was legally carrying, and he drew the gun and he told the guy to back off. Well, the guy didn't. He actually charged him, trying to get control of the gun. And when he went after the gun, the guy in the orange who had the gun shot him. And it was a situation that it was only one shot, killed the initial attacker instantly, and the situation was over. So we're going to take a look at a video of it. We're going to talk a little bit about it because there's people saying that it was not self-defense, but the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office declined to press charges under Ohio's Stand Your Ground law. So let's take a look at that. So let's take a look at this in slow motion. Notice the guy starts to approach the person sitting. And as he tells him to get up and he wants to fight, and he says no, he just comes over the seat at him. He's pushing him away, the guy in the orange. They get into a grappling situation. Still hitting each other, still very close quarters. And the guy starts to break contact, and he draws the gun. When the gun comes out, the initial attacker goes after the gun, and there's the shot that ended the situation. Let's talk about the Ohio Revised Code as it applies here. So let's talk about Ohio Revised Code 2901.05. In Section A of 2901.05, which is your burden of proof, reasonable doubt, and self-defense statute, it says, every person accused of an offense is presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, and the burden of proof for all elements of the offense is upon the prosecution. This is an element of the Ohio law that changed in March of 2019. So this is fairly a recent change to this. The burden of proof going forward with the evidence of an affirmative defense, and affirmative defense literally means that you have affirmed that you did whatever the charges are, but you did it for a specific reason. So it says, it goes on to say, and the burden of proof by the preponderance of the evidence, so proof and the totality of the circumstances, for an affirmative defense other than self-defense, defense of another, or defense of the accused's residence presented as described in division of B1 of this section is upon the accused. In section B1, it says a person is allowed to act in self-defense, defense of another, or defense of that person's residence. This is also under stand your ground also. This is where the stand your ground law is because it kind of falls under castle law. It's pretty much the same thing. It removes that duty to retreat, which when we look at 2901.09, you'll see where I'm talking about. If at the trial of a person who is accused of the offense that involved the person's use of force against another, there's evidence presented that tends to support that the accused person used force in self-defense, defense of another person, or defense of that person's residence. The prosecution must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the accused person did not use force in self-defense, defense of another, or defense of that person's residence, as the case may be. In section number 2 of this, subject to division of B3 of this section, a person is presumed to have acted in self-defense or defense of another when using defensive force that is intended or likely to cause death or great, there's a serious key word there, in great bodily harm. This is not ordinary bodily harm. This is great bodily harm. Okay, to another, if the person against whom the defensive force is used in the process of unlawfully or without privilege to do so, entering or has unlawfully and without privilege to do so entered the residence or vehicle occupied by the person using defensive force. The presumption set forth in division B2 of this section does not apply if either of the following is true. A, the person against whom the defensive force is used has a right to be in or is a lawful resident of the residence or vehicle. So they had a right to be there. Okay. The person who uses defensive force uses it while in a residence or vehicle, and the person is unlawfully without privilege to be in that residence or vehicle. So they didn't have a right to be there. The presumption set forth in division of B2 of this section is a rebuttable presumption and may be rebutted by the preponderance of the evidence, provided that the prosecution's burden of proof remains proof beyond a reasonable doubt and is described in divisions A and B1 of this section. As part of the charge to the jury in a criminal case, the court shall read the definitions of reasonable doubt and proof beyond a reasonable doubt contained in the division E of this section. So you can go on through and read the sections on your own. I'm not going to read the rest of them, but it talks about the definition of affirmative defense and vehicle and things like that. Now let's look at Ohio Revised Code 2901.09. This is no duty to retreat in residence or vehicle or now out in public since that changed last year, April of last year of 2021. In Section A, as used in this section, residence has the same meaning, and that's a key thing here, has the same meaning as 2901.05 of the Revised Code. In Section B, it says, for purposes of any section of the Revised Code that sets forth a criminal offense, a person has no duty to retreat before using force in self-defense, defense of another, or defense of that person's residence if that person is in a place in which the person lawfully has a right to be. So in this case, that person that was attacked on the bus had a lawful right to be on that public bus. Okay. In Section C, a trier of fact shall not consider the possibility of retreat as a factor in determining whether or not a person who used force in self-defense, defense of another, or defense of that person's residence reasonably, keyword, reasonably believed that that force was necessary to prevent injury, loss, or risk of life or safety. You cannot use deadly force to protect property. And that's very clear in the statute, and it says it right there.